So I published a video yesterday, and one of my friends and channel subscribers made a comment. He said, I will bet that the next video you do is not about driving a well. He said that after watching me slamming a fence post driver on a ground rod over and over and over. Well, guess what? This video is about driving a well. I'm sitting down here at what is now my neighbor's property, which used to be my property back in, let me see, I believe this well went in 2014. And it's probably the only well in existence that was driven with a television antenna and a propane tank. Right over there is still the propane tank that was used. I took a few short videos back then and took some pictures as I was doing it, just to document, to show to my wife and friends what I was doing. And must be the ferry got out. Cars going by. I needed to put a well down here on this property and I couldn't afford it. So I needed to do it myself. I had previously worked on putting in 3 other wells by hand. 2 of them were successful. One kind of successful down at the cabin. It took several weekends to do. We hit water enough to make concrete with, but not enough to run the cabin down there, because we hit a limestone shelf and basically we was just using the water on top of that shelf. That being said, back down here, this is totally different ground. Less than a mile away, this is sand and rocks. And the neighbor across the road, who's slightly elevated from here, told me how deep his well was and that it was all sand, and that if I could drive it, if I could get past the rocks. Well, I went and I cut 3 aspen trees from down there, cut them about 12 foot long, made a tripod. Wow, a lot of traffic Sunday morning. Maybe they're going to church. I used a rope and a pulley that we used that's still in the tree down there to the cabin. Still hanging up there in use. Well, at least ready for use. And I used that to hang my well driver, which brings in the propane tank. That propane tank, old tank I had down there, what I did was I took the valve out of it. I took it over on 48 to where there's a dry sand hill, and I filled that tank full of sand. Then I took a piece of 1/2-inch pipe and I screwed it in the fitting, so I had a long piece of pipe that I could use to go down inside the well drive coupler and pick it up and use the weight of that tank to drill the well. Worked very good. Oh, let me tell you about the TV antenna. The first well that we did down to the cabin, we hit that limestone shelf. That was a drive point, and I think we had 30 feet of well pipe with it. Since we ended up having to pull that and not use it to have a professional well put in, I ended up standing it up to the shed one day, strapping it to the shed and putting a television antenna on it. So we had a TV antenna made out of the well pipe and the drive point. Antenna pole was right there. That little antenna is right now. It stood here. This is what held it, because it was in the ground, plus it went clear up in the air, so it was strapped there. So those were my 2 main ingredients for putting a home-driven well in. It was there for 15 years, standing there as a, well, 10 years anyway, standing there as a TV antenna. I asked Pete if I could take that down, because it was Pete and Linda's cabin at that time. He said, sure, take it. So I brought it down here, got me a drive coupler, took the pipe all apart, and started using that television antenna to drill my well, because it still had the drive point on it. To get the well started, I used that auger there to auger a hole and get the first length of pipe, the drive point, in the ground straight. You don't want to start pounding it. Just into the ground. You want it to go straight. So augered a hole, put the pipe in, leveled it, filled the hole in, and then set up that tripod, use that propane tank. The hardest part was to hoist that propane tank up and get that piece of pipe started in that piece of in the well pipe. When it was started high, I would use the tailgate of my truck to stand on. I hung that propane tank from the tripod, hoisted it up, got it started in the pipe, and then just started picking it up and dropping it, picking it up and dropping it, picking it up and dropping it. And I think I could get like an eighth of an inch, about an eighth of an inch every time I picked it up and dropped it. Maybe it was a little bit more than that. Here I am, working along, making progress, getting down, keep driving pipe down, and a catastrophe happened. My half-inch pipe that I had threaded into the propane tank, it broke off. It broke off and it dropped down the well into the point. I'm thinking, what in the world am I going to do? I'm not going to be able to pull that well pipe out with the equipment on hand. So I thought, well, it's just one piece of pipe down there. It might restrict a little bit. Maybe I'll try again. So I had bunged up the threads in that propane. I'll go over there and take a picture of it. It took a whooping while I was using it as a hammer. Here's a propane tank, still here. You can see where the pipe was sand still in it. Oh Lord! I don't know how much that thing weighs, but it's heavy. You can see where it's all from the driving and it's all bashed up. That's a collector's item there, man. And I was able to chase the threads out, get another piece of pipe in, and start it again, even though that piece was down there. And I'm thinking, this isn't going to be very good. So I'm banging away. Catastrophe number 2. The pipe breaks off again. So I've got 2 pieces of half-inch pipe, about 18 inches long, down inside that dry point, 20-some feet down in that well. And I'm thinking, that's it. It's done. So I went back down to the cabin, because I was staying at the cabin while working on the property down here, and this was my property at that time. Oh, by the way, thanks, Dave, for letting me come down and use your well house as a backdrop for, look at water, a backdrop for this video. Anyways, I'm sitting down there on the screen porch, thinking, woe is me, all that work for nothing. And I look there on the porch, and there's some, I don't know what size PVC it is. There were 10-foot lengths. I guess it was half-inch that Pete was planning on using to put water in the cabin someday. And I had an idea. I took a piece of that PVC, and I got the hacksaw, and I split the end about 2-3 inches, maybe 4 inches, so it had a split down through the PVC. And then I took my knife and I put just a little V at the edge of that split, so you could maybe push that onto something. So I brought the PVC pipe down here, put it together. I put 30 foot of it together, and it was real flexible, so I could easily get it down the well. And I got it down the well and started feeling around down there. And I could actually feel them pieces of pipe down there. Well, I kept trying and trying and trying. Eventually, I was able to get that piece of PVC, what I thought was over the edge of that piece of pipe. I pushed it down and it felt like it secured to it, and then I started pulling it up slow. I pulled it up slow, and out come that first 18 inches of pipe. I didn't say a word. I didn't have any reaction at all. I'm here by myself. I took it off and I threw it over my shoulder, and I lowered that PVC pipe back in that well. Fished around a little bit, fished around a little bit more, felt that thing go over the edge again, pushed it down, it felt like it was locked in. Started pulling up, pulling it up, pulling it up. Now, when you got that PVC pipe, it's getting unwieldy up there because there's like 30 feet and it's kind of bent over my shoulder, and I'm scared to death I'm going to drop that again. And I get it up, and I get that, I see that other piece of pipe. I pulled it off, threw it over my shoulder, and I'll bet you they heard me down the road a mile when I hooped and hollered because I had got that out of there. Catastrophe averted. My propane tank is really dinged up now, and I've got to put another piece of pipe in it, a third piece of pipe. Anyways, I run all over. I had to find a tap because now it was so messed up I couldn't clean it with a file or the tools I had. So couldn't find a tap anywhere up here. So I come back and I messed with it some more. Tried to use the corner of a 3-corner file to get the threads to where I could. And we're talking internal threads, so it's a pain. I finally got a piece of pipe to start in it, got it turned in there. I'd been told that if you put water in the pipe and have water in there and all of a sudden the water goes away when you're driving, you've hit a vein and the water, that's where the water goes once you get water. Well, put the driver back together, got it hefted up, got it in the pipe, and started pulling. I think I pulled once, I pulled twice, maybe 3 or 4 times, and then all of a sudden, the water that I had in that standpipe, I heard it go shoo. I was that close when I dropped that pipe down. I hit water. And this was a long time ago, and I didn't make this video for YouTube at the time, but I think I got enough that you'll get a good idea. I think I have the well all set, other than I have to tidy some things up, run some hoses in different places, but we have 120 volt system there, thanks to a Harbor Freight pump for $87, a 12 volt system there that can run so we don't have to have the generator, because I didn't want to spend $30 for a check valve. I just used a gate valve there, and when I want to use 12 volt, I'm going to just open that valve, hook up the battery, there's 12 volt. I thought this pump was supposed to stop when it didn't have demand, but I think I was misinformed. I'm only going to use 12 volt when I'm messing around the property here and don't want to fire up a generator, didn't bring a generator. Shut the gate valve off. If I want to use 110, we've got the generator here. Switch it on. So there's 110 water. When the pump, it's just got a little tank there, you can hear the generator kick on when it's just a little tank, so. All pumped up. There we go. Just put that cord out of the way someplace there. Tip my house back down, and there's the well. But I think I got enough that you'll get a good idea that you too can take what's around you and find a way to use it. I didn't have nothing to drill a well. I didn't have a driver. I didn't have nothing. Old propane tank, television antenna, and the will to get it done. I'm proud of this well, and I'm glad this well now belongs to some folks that bought this property that enabled us to buy the cabin, have the cabin down there. We're going to get this well pumping again for the neighbors this summer. It'll be the first they've seen it pump. I know it'll pump. I have no doubts. No doubts at all. I forgot about these beautiful rocks here. Oh, The other thing I was going to tell you about is when I got the water, I had about 5 foot of pipe standing up out of the ground yet. So I had a piece of 2-foot pipe. The only piece of pipe that I went and bought was this 2-foot piece. What I did was dug down around the well pipe and put that 2-foot in so it was closer to the ground, because I didn't have any way to cut it and thread it, and so I had to put that shorter piece in. But what I noted as I was digging around that pipe to get down to the union, because the union was 2 foot below the ground that I had to get to, I'm running into these big rocks that were around the pipe. Somehow I had avoided all them big rocks to drive that down there. And also what I noted is when I took that piece of pipe off, that the water had come back up within 6 inches of the top of that pipe. So it was almost an artesian well. The water is down there not very far, which led to another problem of wintertime when this well's not being used, that worried about it freezing. What I did was I got some closed cell foam, just round stuff that they use for insulation around windows and different things. And I took a length of that, about 5 feet, and I pushed it down inside the well pump or well pipe in the fall. That displaces the water that's in the pipe, and if it freezes, that foam will take the expansion and the pipe won't break. So it's been here 8 years and it's never had a problem because of winterizing it that way. So there we go. How to drive an off-grid well with nothing. Found stuff. There are never this many vehicles going by here. It must be they knew I was going to make a video.